The worst part about being invisible isn't that people don't see you. It's that sometimes you stop seeing yourself. I stood in front of my locker, trying to make myself as small as possible while Mason Reeves and his friends laughed loudly behind me. Not at me. They didn't even notice me enough to laugh at me. I was just part of the landscape, like the dented blue lockers or the scuffed linoleum floor of Westridge Middle School. "Alex Chan!" Ms. Abernathy's voice cut through the hallway noise as she passed out permission slips. "Make sure your parents sign this for the museum trip." I nodded, taking the paper without making eye contact. Just hearing my name said out loud made my heart rate tick up. I could feel a warm flush creeping up my neck as a few heads turned momentarily in my direction before quickly losing interest. Even though I'd spent my entire life in this town, 7th grade at Westridge might as well have been another planet. Elementary school had felt safe. Here, the hallways were a maze of social landmines. Every class change felt like stepping onto a stage I never auditioned for. I shoved the permission slip into my backpack and headed toward Mr. Breslin's science class, keeping my eyes on the tile patterns. 43 steps from my locker, turn right at the water fountain. 19 more steps to the classroom door. I counted silently, using the numbers to drown out the noise around me. "All right, scientists, find your lab partners," Mr. Breslin announced as soon as the bell rang. Panic immediately flooded my system. Lab partners meant talking. It meant someone depending on me not to mess up. Everyone around me shifted and moved with purpose, gravitating toward friends. I remained frozen, staring at my desk, waiting for whoever was left over to get stuck with me. "Looks like we have an odd number today," Mr. Breslin said, scanning the room. My stomach twisted. Being the odd one out was almost worse than having to partner up. It meant everyone would notice. "Actually, we have a new student joining us," he continued, gesturing toward the door where a boy I'd never seen before stood awkwardly. He had curly dark hair and wore a faded NASA t-shirt. "This is Marco Diaz. Marco, why don't you partner with—" His eyes scanned the room and landed on me. Of course. "Alex Chen." Marco made his way to my table, dragging his backpack. "Hey," he said, dropping into the seat beside me. "Hi," I managed, my voice barely audible. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Hi." "Today's lab is about chemical reactions," Mr. Breslin explained, writing on the whiteboard. "You'll be observing and recording what happens when different substances interact." Marco leaned slightly toward me. "I missed the first part of the year. Are you good at science?" The question caught me off guard. I was good at science. I'd gotten an A on every test so far, but saying that felt like bragging. "It's okay if you're not," Marco added quickly. "I'm pretty decent at it." "I'm okay at it," I said, immediately regretting not being honest. Why couldn't I just say I was good at something? As Mr. Breslin distributed the lab materials, Jada Williams sauntered over to our table. Jada was everything I wasn't. Confident, popular, effortlessly cool with her geometric earrings and perfectly curated outfits. "Mr. Breslin says I need to join your group since Ellie's absent," she announced, not looking particularly happy about it. "We're supposed to be in groups of 3 for this one." My heart sank. Jada had a reputation for taking charge and being brutally honest. Now I'd have to worry about both the new kid and the most intimidating girl in our grade judging everything I said and did. "Cool," Marco said easily. "I'm Marco, just moved here from Chicago." "Jada," she replied, then glanced at me as if just remembering I existed. "And you're Alex, right? We had English together last semester." I nodded, surprised she remembered. We'd never spoken. "I'll get the goggles," she said, already taking charge. "Marco, can you get the beakers? Alex, you get the data sheet ready." As I pulled out my notebook, I caught sight of my schedule tucked in the front pocket. 5th period, Art with Ms. Lopez. The only class I actually looked forward to. Just 3 more periods to go. Getting through morning classes was like holding my breath underwater. I could do it, but it was exhausting, and by lunchtime I felt like I was going to explode. Instead of heading to the cafeteria, a noisy, chaotic nightmare, I slipped into the art room where Ms. Lopez let a few of us regulars eat and work on projects. The familiar smell of paint and clay hit me as I entered, and I felt my shoulders relax for the first time that day. This was my space. Here, being quiet wasn't weird. It was normal to get lost in your own world. I pulled out my sketchbook and the sandwich Mom had packed while settling into my usual corner table. A half-finished watercolor landscape was taped to the table where I'd left it yesterday. "That's coming along nicely, Alex," Ms. Lopez said, appearing beside me with a stack of dried ceramic pieces. "Your use of color is really evolving." I smiled, a real smile, not the tight-lipped version I gave teachers when they called on me in class. "Thanks. I was trying that layering technique you showed us. It's working beautifully. The depth in those hills is remarkable." This was the paradox of my existence. In here, words came easily. I could talk about art techniques and color theory without my chest tightening. Outside this room, asking someone to pass the pencil sharpener felt like climbing Mount Everest. I was adding details to the foreground when the door opened, and to my surprise, Marco walked in, looking around uncertainly. "Can I help you?" Ms. Lopez asked him. "I was looking for somewhere quiet to eat lunch," he said. "The counselor mentioned some students come here?" "Absolutely," Ms. Lopez said warmly. "Find any open spot. Just be mindful of works in progress." To my horror, Marco spotted me and headed straight for my table. "Hey, lab partner," he said. "Mind if I join you?" Every instinct told me to say the seat was taken, but that would be a lie. And then I'd have to deal with the guilt of lying on top of everything else. "Sure," I said, closing my sketchbook a little too quickly. Marco didn't seem to notice my discomfort. He unwrapped a burrito and gestured to my watercolor. "That's really good. Are those the mountains outside town?" I nodded, surprised he'd recognize them. "My dad drove us through that pass when we moved here last week," he explained, taking a bite of his burrito. "It's pretty different from Chicago." I'd never been to Chicago, but I'd seen pictures. "Fewer buildings," I offered. Marco laughed. "Way fewer, and more trees. But mostly it's weird being where no one knows me, you know?" I didn't know. I'd spent my entire life being known but not seen in this town. But something about the way he said it made me wonder if being the new kid felt similar to being invisible, like you're not quite real to anyone else. "Do you miss it?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. Marco's expression shifted. "Yeah," he said, his usual confidence wavering. "I miss my friends, my old room, this Puerto Rican bakery near our apartment that made the best quesitos." "What's a quesito?" "Only the best pastry ever invented. It's like a cream cheese-filled pastry with this sugar glaze on top." For the next few minutes, Marco described Puerto Rican food while I actually listened instead of just nodding and waiting for someone to stop talking. It was the longest conversation I'd had with anyone my age in... I couldn't even remember how long. The bell rang, interrupting Marco's explanation of the perfect tostones. As we packed up, Miss Lopez stopped by. "Alex, don't forget about the showcase coming up. I'd love to see you submit something this year." My momentary comfort evaporated. The showcase was a big event where student artwork was displayed in the main hall for everyone to see. The idea of my art, pieces of my soul, being judged by the entire school made me feel sick. "I'll think about it," I lied. As Marco and I left the art room, he looked at me curiously. "What's the showcase?" "Just an art thing," I mumbled. "It's not important." Seemed important to Ms. Lopez. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "What class do you have next?" "History with Mrs. Grayson." "Me too," I said, immediately regretting saying it out loud. Now he might expect us to walk together, which is exactly what happened. As we navigated the crowded hallway together, I kept waiting for Marco to spot someone more interesting and drift away. But he stayed beside me, occasionally commenting on the school's confusing layout. In history class, I slid into my usual seat in the back corner. To my surprise, Marco took the empty desk next to mine instead of trying to integrate with the more popular groups. "Today we'll begin our unit on civil rights movements," Mrs. Grayson announced after taking attendance, "and we'll start with a group project." My stomach dropped. Group projects were social minefields. "You'll work in groups of 3 to create a presentation on an assigned movement," she continued, pulling out a list. "I've already chosen the groups." As she read off names, I silently prayed to be grouped with people who would just let me do the research part while they handled the presenting. Or better yet, to be overlooked entirely. Group 7, Alex Chen, Marco Diaz, and Jada Williams. My heart sank. Twice in one day? The universe had to be playing some kind of joke. Marco grinned at me, clearly pleased, while across the room, Jada's expression was unreadable as she glanced in our direction. After class, Jada approached us with purposeful strides. "We should exchange numbers for the project," she said efficiently, phone already in hand. My pulse quickened. I hated phone calls more than almost anything. "We can make a group text," Marco suggested. I reluctantly pulled out my phone and added both their numbers as Jada created the group. "Jada, this is the Civil Rights Project group. I have debate team Mon Wed, Dance Thu, and student council meetings free. When are you both free?" The immediacy of her text made my palms sweat. I stared at my phone, trying to figure out how to respond without sounding weird. "Marco, I'm free most days after school, still getting settled." They both looked at me expectantly. "Alex, I'm usually free. I wanted to add more, to sound as put together as they did, but my mind went blank." "Jada, great. Library tomorrow after school? We need to pick our topic from the list." "Marco, works for me." "Alex, okay." I shoved my phone back in my pocket, the interaction leaving me oddly drained. It was just texting, but it felt like I'd run a marathon. One more class until I could go home and decompress. That evening, I sat at the dinner table pushing food around my plate while Mom talked about her day at the hospital and Dad checked his email on his phone. "How was school, Alex?" Mom asked, finally pausing her story about a difficult patient. "Fine," I said automatically. "Just fine?" she pressed. "Anything interesting happen?" I considered telling them about the group project, about Marco and the art room, but it all seemed too complicated to explain. "We have a field trip to the art museum. Need you to sign the permission slip." Dad looked up from his phone. "When is it? I might be able to chaperone if they need parents." The thought of my dad chaperoning sent a wave of panic through me. "They already have enough chaperones," I lied, reaching for the water glass to hide my face. "Alex got paired with the new student in science," Devin, my older sibling, said unexpectedly. They rarely spoke during dinner, usually as eager to escape to their room as I was. Mom perked up. "Oh, who's the new student?" "Just some guy," I mumbled, shooting Devin a betrayed look. "Marco, he's from Chicago." "That's nice," Mom said, but I could hear the underlying excitement in her voice. She worried about my lack of friends, though she tried not to show it. "We're also doing a history project together," I admitted, figuring I might as well give her the good news all at once. "With a girl named Jada." "That sounds wonderful," Mom said, exchanging a quick glance with Dad. "What's the project about?" "Civil rights movements. We're picking our topic tomorrow." Dad finally put his phone down. "That's an important subject. If you need any help researching, let me know." I nodded, though I knew I wouldn't ask. Dad's help usually meant taking over. After dinner, I escaped to my room and pulled out my sketchbook. Drawing was the only way I knew to process the day, to make sense of the knot of feelings in my chest. I sketched quick impressions. Marco's curly hair, Jada's geometric earrings, the mountains we'd driven through countless times that somehow looked new when seen through Marco's eyes. In the margins, I wrote words that had been swirling in my head. Invisible, new, voice, change. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring with this unexpected new project group, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like something might be about to change. Whether that was good or terrifying remained to be seen.